Here's a turbo upgrade that I did for a farm tractor. This is a 80s model Ford that had this turbo on it. This turbo, I upgraded the compressor wheel and the turbine wheel. The reason I did that was because the size of the wheels, it was hard to get a replacement for. So these are parts that I just happen to have on hand from my past of upgrading different turbochargers. So I was lucky to have these things sitting around. This compressor wheel I think might be either a V trim or an S trim. I don't know the measurement off the top of my head. I'm guessing it's around 48 millimeter. Before, the other compressor wheel was a lot smaller. I probably upgraded this about probably between 5 to 10 millimeter. The turbine wheel, the other turbine wheel that was in it, this turbo had been messed with before, because I could tell because the turbine that was in it was clipped for some reason, like they're trying to do a performance build on a tractor. Now this turbine wheel I went with is 56 millimeter by 65. This turbine wheel is called the Stage 3 turbine. So this is usually the smallest turbine that I usually work with, which is why I used it in this build, because I was just trying to fix this turbo. The turbine housing that you see is a T3 twin scroll 1.08. Now the thing that's interesting about that is I have a lot of people that want to have a housing just like this on custom Garrett turbo builds. And with this housing, remember it's a T3 twin scroll 1.08. It's hard to find something like that and twin scroll. You can use this housing for ball bearing turbos such as the GT 3071R, the 3076, the 35R, and you can do the GTX 35A2R. And you can also use this to do a custom build like I've shown in other videos, where we do a 67 millimeter ball bearing turbine wheel, and then the front half we do a ball bearing GT35R, but then we do a 66 millimeter compressor wheel. Now, as far as availability of getting a turbine housing like this, this is the only one I've ever seen, but they do have these turbos available online. What I've seen that they go for is around $800, so I don't know if you could get a used one very easily, just because I've never seen one like this before. But I think it's just interesting that this form of a turbo with that size turbine housing actually exists. Now this turbo, I was just trying to fix it, so we just put the smallest possible we could put back in there. Now this one should be good for around 400 horsepower, but it is going on a diesel, so those numbers are going to vary. If this guy really wanted to make this tractor fast, I can make a 900 horsepower turbo for this, but I don't think that's what he was trying to do. He's just trying to use it for basic farm use. Anyway, I'll get you some close-up pictures so you can check out this turbo up close. So another thing about this turbine housing that's pretty neat is that the turbine housing can be machined for hull sets. So you can machine this turbine housing to fit an HX35 or an HX40 64 millimeter or 67 millimeter. So there's really a lot of options with this turbine housing. The reason why there's so many options is because it's got such a small turbine wheel from factory, so it can be machined to all those different sizes. Now most of the time you find Garrett turbos that have a T3 or a T4 housing. Well, actually mainly I think it's T4. When they have a T4 housing, pretty much all those are P-trim turbines, which are already 64.5 millimeter. So there's not a lot that you can do with those with the smaller turbos, but they can be upgraded to the 67 millimeter HX40, or they can be upgraded to the Garrett, anything Garrett above 66 millimeter, or anything Garrett above the P-trim size, which is basically 66 millimeter and above, which doesn't give you very many options because that's already bigger than the GT35R turbine shaft, yet it's still a little bit smaller than our custom 67 millimeter ball bearing turbine shaft, which is mainly why we came out with that So it just gives you more options to build a ball bearing turbo out of T4 turbine housings.